as a measure of transparency, Chair, that it's something that could conceivably be dispensed with quickly today. Pardon? It sounds like from the Liberals we're in for a filibuster. Mr. Turnbull says it's wishful thinking to think that it would be dispensed with today.
They are absolutely terrified of what Francois Philippe Champagne and what the Ethics Commissioner will say at committee. The big news this week has been that Mark Carney has secured his Liberal majority against the will of the Canadian electorate. But that has overshadowed another issue that is rapidly accelerating into a full-blown scandal, and the Liberals are only helping to attract even more attention to it. Recently, it has been revealed that Francois Philippe Champagne is in a conflict of interest, or potential conflict of interest, with the Alto project because his wife started working with them in August of 2025. Conservatives are now calling for him to testify before the Ethics Committee to explain himself. But the Liberals are doing everything possible in order to prevent that from happening. Let's take a look.
Good afternoon. Today I'm joined by my colleague, MP Hardy, and we're here to talk about the serious questions that Canadians have coming out of the revelation about the Liberal finance minister's connection to executives at Alto. Now, the $90 billion Alto project is the largest infrastructure project in Canadian history, and it came to light over the past week that the Liberal finance minister, Champagne, he has a spouse in the vice president of Alto, this Crown corporation. Now, when this came to light, Minister Champagne said that he had proactively recused himself from decisions, discussions, and debates concerning Alto and had put in place an informal conflict of interest screen in his office, and that he notified Prime Minister Carney of this in the fall. The problem is that we've seen over the period of time that Alto has since been included in legislation such as the Budget Implementation Act, that the minister has participated in debates, discussions, and would seem to have participated in decisions, but ultimately did vote not just for the Budget Implementation Act, but also when the House was given the opportunity to remove the creation of the High-Speed Rail Network Act from the Budget Implementation Act, the minister voted with the government to protect this act, to the creation of this act, and to protect Alto. And with a project of this magnitude, it's important that Canadians are able to have confidence that everything is above board. There isn't a cloud of suspicion, of conflict of interest. And so today, Conservatives are announcing that we are going to be calling for a committee investigation at the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics to have the minister come before committee to answer questions, to have the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner come before committee to answer questions, along with executives, including the Chief Executive Officer of Alto. It's important that Canadians are able to have a clear understanding of why the government is taking the decisions that they are, that they're acting only in the best interest of Canadians and not acting to further the private interests of anyone connected with government. And we'll look today for this to pass expeditiously through committee.
This is a good thing. This is what the Ethics Committee is intended to do. It's to not only review different pieces of legislation, but it's also to review potential violations of the ethics of parliamentarians. And it's ironic, or maybe expected, that much of the early work of the Ethics Committee in this parliamentary session has been studying the Conflict of Interest Act, has been studying the conflicts of interest of Mark Carney himself. They've met extensively on this and had many, many witnesses come in and speak to this. Now, this is what we were hoping would happen once the news came out about this, and this is what is actually happening. So, on April 13th, Mr. Barrett presented that motion at committee, and this should have been a relatively quick motion. But early indications by the Liberals were that this would not be a motion that would be quickly dealt with, just to, align with Mark Carney's commitment of transparency. Why is it that when every time a Liberal leader says, well, we're committed to transparency, it's exactly the opposite? If they were committed to transparency, Champagne would come in, he would say, sure, no problem, nothing to hide. This is the deal. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Unless there is something to hide. So this is what happened at the tail end of Mr. Baird's opening remarks after he introduced this motion into committee.
I think that just as a measure of transparency, Chair, that it's something that could conceivably be dispensed with quickly today, and over the next 2 weeks. Pardon? It sounds like from the Liberals we're in for a filibuster. Mr. Turnbull says it's wishful thinking to think that it would be dispensed with today. But we think that it's an opportunity for transparency, and unfortunately it's telling that that the committee won't be able to get on with other business.
It's funny. This is the arrogance that we're talking about here that is going to get the Liberals into a lot of trouble, because this is the Monday before the by-elections, and the by-elections were set to happen later that evening, and the Liberals already knew that this is going to go their way. Everybody knew that the by-elections were going to go their way, and they're already crowing and being arrogant about this, to the point where Turnbull speaks out and he says, it's wishful thinking that this is going to be dealt with expeditiously. It's wishful thinking for Canadians to have transparency. Wow. Okay. Thank you very much for admitting that in the middle of a committee hearing, in the middle of the Conservatives actually putting forth a motion to call the Minister and the Ethics Commissioner and the CEO of Alto to testify in committee. Thank you very much for letting us know that. Now, after Mr. Barrett continued speaking, as expected, the filibuster began. And they talked, and they talked, and they talked. And their intention was just to keep talking and waste time, because they wanted to just run out the clock, and they're trying to run out the clock to the point where the meeting ends, and they're hoping that the Conservatives will just give up and move on to another topic. That's what they're hoping for. But that didn't really happen. Now, the interesting thing is one other piece of business that the committee had to attend to on Monday was the actual report on the conflict of interest study that they've been doing on Mark Carney and the Act and the recommendations on that to send it to the House. And this is no doubt going to result in a report that proposes changes to the Conflict of Interest Act that may even require Mark Carney to divest all of his investments completely, regardless of whether it's in a blind trust or not. So that ended up being proposed by Mr. Barrett a long time after the filibuster started.
On the motion.
Chair, I move that the committee now proceed to the consideration of the draft report, the review of the Conflict of Interest Act.
Okay, motion's on the floor. It's a dilatory motion, no debate. We're going to go straight to the vote. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Miss Church.
No.
Madame Lapointe.
Non.
Monsieur Sari.
No.
Mr. Fergus.
No.
Mr. Barrett.
Yay.
Mrs. Strauss.
Yay.
Strauss-Cooper.
Monsieur Hardy.
Oui.
Monsieur Thériault.
Oui.
Yeas 4, nays 4.
Okay, I vote yes.
Yeas 5, nays 4.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to move in camera. This meeting is suspended until we set it up.
Okay, remember what we talked about all the opposition parties are going to be really working together very closely here. So what ended up happening is, in order to actually move on to a report that is almost ready to present to the House, Mr. Barrett interrupted his own motion by putting forth another motion to move on to other business. So it's a dilatory motion, meaning there is no debate on it. He's not introducing something new. What he is doing is just saying we need to change to another existing topic that is already on the slate of committee business. So there is no debate on it. In a lot of cases, if you're raising a motion, there is debate, and there is endless debate as long as there's a speaker's list, but not in this case. So this is the interesting part, because all of the Liberals also voted no on this. They said, no, we don't want to get back to the Conflict of Interest Act, and we don't want to get to the report on that. And we don't want to finalize that so we can actually get it to the House. But the Bloc voted with the Conservatives. So there's 3 Conservatives, 4 Liberals, and 1 Bloc. And in this committee, a Conservative chair. So we're still in minority parliament. So you end up having 4 opposition members voting and 4 Liberals voting. Now it's a tie. The chair is almost like the Speaker of the House. If there's a tie, the chair gets to vote. And in a minority parliament, this is where the opposition has the power in these committees, because the chair, who is of the Ethics Committee, Public Accounts Committee, and the Government Operations and Estimates Committee, is always a member of the opposition, usually the official opposition. So those folks get to vote whenever there's a tie. So the Bloc is now lining up with the Conservatives to force this accountability on the actual Liberals. So they went to in-camera, they did that for a while, and then they came back. And after they came back, the filibuster continued with Greg Fergus until he tried to do this.
So I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Well done, Greg Fergus. So you couldn't hack it as a speaker, so now you're here, and you're just trying to protect the cabinet now by avoiding discussion on this entirely and trying to adjourn the meeting. Well, this is also a dilatory motion. There's no debate on it, so it went right to a vote. Again, all the Conservatives voted to keep the meeting going. The Bloc sided with them. Liberals voted against it. It was a tie. Went to Mr. Broussard. He voted with the opposition. Meeting continued. Filibuster continued until...
Mr. Chair, it would be my intent to move a motion to adjourn. And I would say this to members of the committee, our intention would then be to agree to a motion to resume debate on Thursday. But yes, I'm moving to adjourn.
So that's Leslie Church. She's the Liberal member of Parliament for Toronto St. Paul. So lots of filibuster, and let's adjourn again. We're not interested in accountability. We're not interested in transparency. We're not interested in Mr. Champagne coming to committee to try to explain himself. If this wasn't a problem, they wouldn't be having an issue with it. So this is again the Liberals blocking and blocking and blocking the minister from coming and explaining this conflict of interest that he allegedly informed the Prime Minister back in September, that he allegedly said that he informed the Ethics Commissioner of. Conservatives are saying he didn't inform the Ethics Commissioner. Wasn't posted on the website. Well, you know, it's not typically posted on the website with spouses. Actually, there's actually lots of records of conflict of interest disclosures related to spouses on the website. So try again. But this went on and on and on, and it went into Tuesday. And it's still going, folks. This is the crazy thing. To the point where other members of Parliament of the Conservatives were subbing in. Here's Andrew Lawton.
Monsieur Hardy, a few moments ago, offered what I thought was an incredible support of goodwill from the Conservatives to the Liberals there, that we approve their amendment, which in principle we disagree with because we do think this is important enough that it needs to be reported to the House, but that we support their amendment and support the motion itself. And this was a great opportunity for the Liberals to prove that they actually were concerned about this technicality on reporting to the House. But that wasn't the case, because they denied unanimous consent to that. Anyone who listens will hear Liberal members saying no to Monsieur Hardy's request for unanimous consent. They said no. So their issue is not actually reporting this to the House. Their issue is with having the Minister of Finance testify about his clear conflict of interest on the Alto file. That's what we're dealing with. We were prepared to support the Liberal amendment, dispense with this ridiculous 10-hour filibuster by the Liberals, remove the reporting of the House, but allow the Ethics Committee to do the work of studying the minister's claims that he has recused himself from decisions the government has made related to Alto, and invite the minister to appear for 2 hours, invite executives from Alto, including the CEO, Martin Blot, for 2 hours, and the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, Conrad von Finkenstein, for 2 hours as well. That was what we were supporting.
So what was that about? Well, what ended up happening is the Liberals introduced or tried to introduce an amendment and discussion where they wanted to remove the requirement to report to the House. So the Conservatives said, eventually, fine, no problem. Let's put this out there, unanimous consent. We will amend the main motion so that we will invite the minister, invite the CEO, invite the ethics commissioner, and we will remove their requirement to report this to the House. Let's get unanimous consent on that. And then the Liberals said no. Why would the Liberals do that? Well, because as soon as you've kind of exhausted the number of people that are actually speaking to a motion, you end up having to invent new amendments in order to actually continue the filibuster. So what they did is they just added an amendment. And once you do that, everything resets and then you keep going. This is how the Conservatives ended up filibustering all of Parliament at the end of the Trudeau era on the SDTC scandal that was just seizing Parliament for 2 months. That's how they did it. It was just amendment after amendment after amendment. And the opposition saw that the Liberal government was on its last legs, and they were able to essentially seize control of the House. So this is what the Liberals have started to do in committee, because they are absolutely terrified of what Francois Philippe Champagne and what the ethics commissioner will say at committee. They are terrified. If they weren't, they would have passed this motion and he'd already be scheduled to come into committee. But now a relatively simple meeting, relatively simple agenda that started on Monday, April 13th. That meeting technically has not stopped. So when the Liberals love to talk about the Conservatives and they are obstructing, they're preventing business from actually being addressed, Canadians want to know, if the Conservatives were obstructing, Greg Fergus, Leslie Church, all the rest of you, Mark Carney, Francois Philippe Champagne, what would you call this?